So Aaron Rodgers had himself quite the performance last Sunday against the Oakland Raiders. I mean, he was just on fire all game long, and that was really kind of the game we were waiting to see from Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, we've seen him do it so many times in the past, but this season with a new head coach, we're kind of like, okay, we know that this team is winning, but we still get to see Aaron Rodgers truly go off until last Sunday when he truly went off. Because of that performance, it now puts him in 7th in the NFL in yards per game. But what I find very interesting about that is that you look at 6 of the guys ahead of him, and 4 of the guys ahead of him don't have a winning record. Their teams are currently having a losing record. That's Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Jameis Winston, and Matthew Stafford. But also maybe just as interesting is the fact that his interception total is only at 2 right now, where only Patrick Mahomes out of the guys who are ahead of him are better than that. Mahomes has 1, and also Stafford has 3, and then the next closest is Rivers with 6. So when you take out the guys who are throwing a lot of volume stats, but also throwing a lot of interceptions, Aaron Rodgers is definitely, if not at the top of the list, very close to the top of the list already, and it seems like he's just getting warmed up. And it's not just him. I know the receivers don't have a lot of big names, but that Packers offense as a whole is working very well. Like, take a look at this play, for example. I'll tell you how the play is actually going to end up working before I tell you what Rodgers' first read is going to be on this play, because what's going to end up happening is it's going to be against the cover 3 zone that the Packers are going up against, and here's what they're going to do. They have a receiver running a go route towards the sideline, and they also have Jimmy Graham who'll be running that route right there. Now, this is not Rodgers' first read on this play. This actually can be a great way to beat a cover 3 zone, but it takes some time to develop, and it's just not what Rodgers is looking for on this play. This is not his first read. As you see, he looks up to the top half of the screen. He really wants to hit that receiver right there, but he's just not open. So okay, Rodgers now has to look around and try to find something else that could potentially be open. But what I find amazing about this is just watch Rodgers and look at how many different times his head moves. I count 4 different head movements, 4 different times that he's looking for somebody else in just a 2-second span. That was 2.27 seconds, and he looked 4 different places before finally seeing that Jimmy Graham right there is open. It's just a great way of staying alive and looking for something else. I mean, worth mentioning, the offensive line absolutely did their job on that one. I mean, that's one of the key takeaways from that game I had, was just the Packers offensive line played great. And the reality is, you give Rodgers time and he will make you pay, and watch how he's able to find Jimmy Graham and they're able to pick up a huge gain. When playing the Packers, you kind of just accept the fact that the huge gains are going to happen, and you just hope they don't happen too often. However, they were happening quite often against the Raiders, and so most of these plays that we'll talk about will be the big plays, because, come on, those are the most fun to talk about. Since the Raiders were running a fair amount of cover 3 zone, the Packers started to create plans to try to combat the cover 3 zone. And this play I love. It's just a smart play. It's just understanding your personnel and using your personnel to your benefit. It's going to be a cover 3 zone, and what the Packers are doing is they're going to have the receiver on the bottom half of the screen run that route right there. He'll actually cut a little bit later, but that's off screen. But he's going to basically cut as soon as he gets into the zone that's going to be on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. The reason for that, of course, is to get the cornerback who's in charge of covering that area closer to the middle of the field, because then they can send Aaron Jones like that, and he could potentially get open. Again, this just understanding your personnel. Watch how this play is going to work out. One thing worth noting is that actually a Raider does a pretty good job of realizing what's going on and trying to make sure that he keeps pace of Aaron Jones. But the problem is, now you have a linebacker trying to keep pace of Aaron Jones, and that's a matchup that Aaron Rodgers will take every day, and so he's going to just fire a shot downfield, and it is going to be caught for a touchdown. And I also kind of have to say, this isn't really Matt LaFleur style offense, this is kind of off-brand from Matt LaFleur to a degree, but you know what? You gotta play with the players you have, and if you have talented players that maybe you typically didn't design a system for, well hey, change the system, find a way to use their talent to your benefit, and that's what he did against the Raiders, and it really paid off. This play was another play I loved, where this time Oakland's going to be playing cover 2 zone, and for the Packers, they have a receiver running that route right there, which, it could get open. There is a gap in coverage after the guys in the middle of the field, but before the safeties, where potentially Rodgers could try to hit it, but that's actually not what's going to end up happening here. Instead, take a look at what does happen. It's actually going to be kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine, where take a look at what's going to happen at that situation right there. There's a halfback running out, and so a Raider kind of runs up closer to try to make sure that he's covering him, which, okay, you can do that, but now there's a situation going on over there. Another Packer is trying to cut into what his zone was, and since Rodgers could potentially just throw over the receiver, throw over that linebacker, and hit a Packer who would be wide open, now a safety doesn't allow it to happen, so he's going to cut in to try to make sure that he cuts that off. But because of that, this now means that the receiver on the top half of the screen, Kumaro, he has a chance to get wide open. Granted, again, a Raiders player is going to realize what's going on and try to keep pace of him, but the reality is, Aaron Rodgers, he's not going to allow that to happen. He's going to make a perfect throw, and they get a touchdown. It's just a well-executed play. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts there, but the easy thing to understand is that Aaron Rodgers is good, and he made a very good throw there. But also, I have to say, this might be Matt LaFleur's most shining moment as a head coach so far, was this week, especially as an offensive play caller. He was doing such a good job out there of creating these plays that were just working, and Aaron Rodgers, of course, he makes any good head coach look great, and that's what he was doing here. And one of the things I loved was just Aaron Rodgers just realizing what's going on in certain situations and just not being fooled. I mean, this guy's been around the block. He's a smart player, and he definitely has some high intelligent plays, and he showed one right here. Where the first thing you're going to notice is that there are a lot of Oakland Raiders who are right on the line right here. So I think an inexperienced quarterback would think, okay, definitely a blitz. Get this ball off quickly. Which, in fairness, is something that Rodgers should still be looking at. I mean, more often than not, when you do this, it is going to be a blitz, but not every time. You know, you're showing blitz, but that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to blitz. And for Oakland, they're not going to blitz. They're going to drop back into coverage, and this is instead going to be a cover 2 zone, which matters because the Packers have a receiver. It's going to be Lazard run that route right there, which can be great against the cover 2 zone. As I shown earlier, you know, it can work in that sense, but also, it can just work in the sense that right past the corner who's in charge of covering the flat on the top half of the screen, and also just when you get before the safety who's in charge of covering the screen deep, that's where potentially Lazard could get open. But also worth mentioning, this looks as though it's going to be a cover 3 as opposed to a cover 2, since there are 2 corners who are deep and also 1 safety who's at the top half of the screen. Typically, you don't do this in a cover 2, typically you do this in a cover 3, but that's just a disguise. There's a ton of trickery that Oakland is trying here, but Rodgers is going to see through it all pretty quickly. The second the ball is snapped and players drop back, he instantly knows he has time and doesn't have to panic. And he also quickly realized that this is the cover 2, because he looks up and sees Lazard, who is kind of open. I mean, he's not wide open. There are 2 Raiders right in the area, but there definitely is Lazard who is open. And also worth mentioning, since there's another Packer who's running deep closer to the middle of the field, but also still in the top half of the screen, this now means that Lazard can get a little bit more open, as the safety who's in charge of covering the top half of the screen can't just go full out to stop Lazard. But what I love about this throw also is look at where he puts it. He puts it high. Lazard makes a great catch, so give him a lot of credit. They were able to get the ball inside of 5. I mean, that's not easy to do, but that's also just an exact perfect throw by Rodgers. And I know you might be saying, wait a second, it was too high, but yeah, that's the point. Either Lazard is making that catch or nobody is making that catch. Sometimes you don't necessarily throw it to where your wide receiver is, you throw it to where the gap in coverage is, and that's what Rodgers did on that play. That's why in my top 40 quarterback rankings list, I put a guy like Aaron Rodgers at number 1, because I don't think any other quarterback in the league makes that play, at least not consistently. Because someone like Patrick Mahomes maybe just doesn't have the experience to make those reads that quickly. He still is a very smart player, but he's not quite on Aaron Rodgers' level just yet. But then guys like Drew Brees and Tom Brady just don't have the athleticism that Rodgers still has at this point in their careers. So that's why I think I would still say Aaron Rodgers is number 1, although definitely Patrick Mahomes has closed that gap quite a bit. It's not just his physical play, it's his intelligence, and this play is a perfect example of that, where for Oakland, it's going to be cover 0. So they're going to send 6 guys to rush Rodgers, and then everyone else just playing man. And so for your math fans out there, if you realize, okay, if there's 5 people playing man coverage, that means you're sending 6, but there's only 5 offensive linemen, meaning that somebody will be going unblocked unless somebody just totally screws up. So for a quarterback, if you notice it's a cover 0, you have to get this ball out quickly. But if you do, it can result in some really good things. And so for Rodgers, he has Marquez Valdez-Scantling running that route right there. And so he's just going to say, you know what? Let's take a shot here. Let's just gain some yards. It's a cover 0. And who knows, if he can break a tackle, this could be a touchdown. And lo and behold, he makes a quick throw. The Oakland Raiders player just misplays it. And that's all I needed. I mean, he gets a block downfield, and then it's a touchdown. I know it might not seem like that should be such a huge Aaron Rodgers highlight, and in fairness, I mean, Valdez-Scantling probably deserves most of that credit. Honestly, the defensive player who screwed up probably deserves most of that credit, but Rodgers definitely did his part on that play as well. It's the kind of thing where you have to know on every single play, if this is going to be cover 0, where do I have to make this throw to? If this is going to be this type of coverage, where do I make the throw to? Whatever type of coverage it is, I have to know what I'm doing with that ball, and Rodgers knew the second he saw it was cover 0, okay, hit Valdez-Scantling, let's see what we can do. Honestly, that's a lot easier said than done, but I like what Rodgers is doing. I think that he is playing at such a high level just from a mental standpoint. I think his mental game has improved a lot over the years, and he's one of the smartest players in the league, but also one of the most physically gifted players in the league. That's what makes him so fun. And one more play I thought was fun was this one where it's going to be play action, and then those are 2 receivers running those 2 routes right there, but that's not really important. What's really important is take a look at what happens right when this ball is snapped and after this play develops for a bit. You're going to notice first off that once again Rodgers just has all day to make a throw. Oakland bid on the play action, and so Rodgers, he can take his time here, which is definitely always nice. Let's be real, every quarterback looks like they're a smart player when you just have time to make a throw, but especially when you have Aaron Rodgers, when he has time to make a throw, he can make some really smart decisions. Now, a lot of guys in this situation would just hit Jimmy Graham right there over the middle. You can gain some yards, maybe he can even break a tackle and be off, but he's clearly open, and that would clearly be a first down, so a lot of guys would just take that shot there. However, Rodgers was feeling himself last Sunday against the Raiders. Rodgers is going to say, you know what, I see a guy up there, sure it's double coverage, but he's about to cut to the top half of the screen. I think I can make this throw work. Valdez-Scantling cuts, he gets wide open, Rodgers takes a deep shot, and they're able to gain a ton of yards on that play. He gave up an automatic first down because he felt like he could get more yards, and he was correct. That's a gutsy play right there from your quarterback, and as Valdez-Scantling, you have to kind of say, hey, I got to feel pretty good about myself if Aaron Rodgers trusts me that much, because the fact that Rodgers has faith in his receivers, I think it really shows. I mean, that Lazard pass, he had faith in Lazard to go up and make that play. And the receivers are rewarding him by actually going out and making some plays. So this team is just clicking right now. Again, I know they don't have the name brand receivers right now. It seems like Adams will hopefully be back next week, so let's hope that happens. But even without him, this offense is clicking right now. And I think when you add Adams, it could be really good. So yeah, that's the thought of Aaron Rodgers' dominant performance against the Raiders. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, thanks for watching.